A van for all seasons, winter edition. A quality camper van is not just designed for travel, it should be designed for life in all kinds of weather. Whether you're exploring winter recreation or escaping summer heat, a well-built van can keep you comfortable off-grid year-round. Last February, I did the first installment of the Van for All Seasons YouTube, talking about how campmaker vans are designed for the winter weather in more efficient and effective ways than most recreational vehicles. And now it's time for a Van for All Seasons, the summer edition. To begin with, it's important that you spend time insulating your van so it's effective in the winter and in the summer. In the same manner that a good heater works great in the wintertime, in the summertime, a good air conditioner makes all the difference in your ability to enjoy your excursions and your recreation. Insulation is your first line of defense against the heat of the summertime. So campmaker vans use a combination of XPS, Thinsulite, and polyiso foam. And this thermal insulation is applied to the floor, the walls, the ceiling, the doors, and it ranges from R5 all the way up to R14. Windows are one of the biggest areas for heat loss in your van, and so campmaker vans use a combination of roll-down blinds and insulated inserts. Because the window casings on campmaker vans are about 1.5 inches deep, this allows us to create a polyiso foam board insert that snugly fits in each window casing and provides about an R6 insulation. And so here's a picture of the windows when they're the rolled down blinds. They are also snapped into place, and this method of covering the windows is one of the best options to make sure that either cold from the outside or the heat doesn't get in. Another method to deal with temperatures is called thermal zoning. We're basically, in this case, we're taking blankets. We use wool blankets, and we add snaps to them so they can be effectively spread across right behind the cab area or across the back door, and it allows additional layer of insulation against colder heat. And here's a photo of the back door covered by that same blanket, wool blanket thermal insulation. One big advantage for air conditionings in camper vans is the realization that your lithium batteries need to be protected from the extreme heat, and so if the heat gets over 100 degrees in your van, it can do some pretty significant damage to your batteries, and so make sure you think about that as you take care of your batteries. Over the years, air conditioning has made significant progress in terms of technology. Our family, when I was young, would travel from Oregon to Kansas in a vehicle a lot like this 54 Chevy, and we used the swamp cooler. And you know, it was better than nothing, but it definitely had some drawbacks, especially when the water started dripping on the inside of the vehicle. Swamp coolers were adapted for RVs, and they certainly are helpful, especially if you're in very dry heat, but certainly effective air conditioners can do better than a swamp cooler. The companies that make air conditioners for RVs for many years used very old technology. In most cases, 30-40-year-old technology was still being produced up until recently. And so a lot of people have been waiting for more efficient options, but the high wattage air conditioners often needed at least 30 and quite often 50 amp service in order to push the air conditioners, which would then obviously be using a lot of power. Van and RV enthusiasts were eager to apply newer cooling technology, but there are complexities to overcome, such as mounting this mini split to a van build. Others knew about the efficiencies of the window air conditioners and explored ways to install them, such as this under-seat mount, which included large holes in the floor of the van. This person took the window air conditioner and created a hatch on the outside wall, as well as a sliding drawer to pull out the air conditioner so it could function when you need it, but then you could push it back in and seal the latch when you were traveling down the road. So we had completed the process to prepare this van for sale in May, and it had a max fan installed, and right about that same time I saw two different companies release a efficient inverter air conditioning units. And it made me think seriously that it was probably time for camp maker vans to start installing air conditioners in our camper vans. The two companies that show the most promise in terms of this efficiency that I've been talking about are Out Equip Pro and Countrymod, and both of them have a lot of different people that are installing them and running reviews, and so they both are almost the exact same, both efficiency and size and so on, but they appear to be well made and have some real potential. So how do you compare the efficiency of all these different air conditioners, whether it's the new ones that I'm just mentioning or some from the past? And I think the best option is the EER ratio, energy efficiency ratio. EER is just basically the BTUs, British thermal units, divided by watts. And with the older air conditioners that I mentioned, the EER was often less than 8.5. The heat pumps, mini splits, and all of those are primarily greater than 8.5, maybe 9.5, 10.5, and so on. And then these two new inverter air conditioners are an EER of 12, which there are very few units that are more efficient than that number 12. So the Countrymod unit is the one that we selected, and sometimes the air conditioner company's marketing departments will stretch the truth about the BTU ratings for the given air conditioner. Although it is very difficult to calculate an accurate BTU unless you have a good laboratory setup for this purpose, but what really matters is whether the air conditioner can keep your van cool when it gets really hot. I found the Countrymod air conditioner in turbo mode, which is close to 10,000 BTUs. It takes about an hour to bring the interior temperature down at least 20 degrees from the outside temperature, and then can be switched to run in either eco mode, which is drawing about 410 watts, or sleep mode, which is drawing about 310 watts. It also has a fan only option, which is about 23 watts. So when running in these lower wattage phases, it also is using a lot less BTUs. One of the biggest benefits of these new air conditioners is they were made to fit inside the standard 14 by 14 opening that's common for RV vents over the last 60 years. In a couple of hours, I was able to remove the Max fan and prepare it to install the new air conditioner. The Countrymod unit is 57 pounds, and so it's quite a bit lighter. Oftentimes the other air conditioners are like 90 pounds or maybe 100 pounds. So it's a lot easier to lift up onto the roof, but it's also a lot easier for the roof to handle that extra weight. It's not uncommon for van builders to have to build in heavy steel rods to provide the reinforcement for the air conditioner on the roof. And in this case, the support beams that I put in for the Max fan are actually fine to use for this air conditioner. This air conditioner is also a very low profile. It's only 7 inches tall and quite streamlined, so I think it won't have any significant degradation from the gas mileage when you're going down the freeway at 65 or 70 miles an hour. And here's a picture of the interior unit for the air conditioner. It's about 2 inches thick, so it doesn't protrude too deeply into the vehicle. And the vents work well, and the control panel is easy and user-friendly. One of the things I'm intrigued about is whether a 280 amp hour battery can be practical to push these air conditioners. And so in this case, the van has one battery like this, and so the test that we did was with the 280 amp hours. If at some point additional battery was needed, there is space to add another 280 amp hour battery, but I'm very pleased that with the test that we did, it can work well with just this one battery. To charge up the battery bank, we have a KISSE DMT 1250, which is a 50 amp solar and DC to DC, which means you're charging from your alternator. And then to document the battery charging progress and know the battery state of charge is a Victron Smart Shunt, which includes a Bluetooth app. So June in Oregon isn't traditionally really hot, but Sunday, June 8th, 9th, and 10th, we have a a heat wave coming through our area, and it seemed like it would be a good time to do a test of the air conditioner. So we ran the air conditioner from 1 p.m. till 8 p.m. It was 95, 96, 97 degrees outside, so quite a bit of heat. And we set the temperature on the air conditioner to 75 on the inside. We tested out all the different settings, both turbo and eco mode, as well as sleep. And at the same time, we were generating solar energy to offset the power needed to run the air conditioner. We began with 100% charge on the battery, so it was a 280 amp hour battery. And at the end of the time, we had used 103 amp hours, and we were down to 63%. So overnight, we opened up the windows and let the van cool off, and then it was doing some recharging in the morning and got the battery up to the 77%. But about noon, it was obvious that we needed to start the air conditioner, so it was because it was getting pretty warm. It did get up to about 94 degrees during the day. The temperature inside the van, we set it on eco mode, and so it was about a couple degrees warmer. So instead of 76, it actually was 78 degrees. But this also allowed a little bit less power being utilized, so it saved about 24 amp hours of power. And at the end of the test at 7 o'clock tonight, it ended up with 49% of the battery remaining. You know, there are a lot of different ways to manage how you deal with the heat when you're camping. And so clearly, you know, parking in the shade is one of the best things you can do, as well as the ability to, if you are traveling from one spot to another, you're going to generate a lot more power using the DC to DC charging. In my case, I can get right at 50 amps for every hour of driving. And so if I drove for like 3 or 4 hours, then you're going to recharge a lot of that power that was used for the air conditioning and be able to have air conditioning ready for that next night. So I think the big conclusion is that RV air conditioners are finally building units that are efficient enough, especially with EERs of like 12 like this one, that it is practical to cool your van for multiple days with only, in my case, 500 watts of solar and a 280 amp hour battery bank. So a camper van isn't just a vehicle, it's your shelter, it's your home, and your power system. So building for all seasons means that you want to maximize insulation to reduce the energy demand on your vehicle. You want to choose an efficient, modern air conditioner, such as the one I've selected. And then it's important and helpful to use smart zoning like I did with the blankets. And so by combining all of these thoughtful ideas, you can enjoy your camper van when you're traveling off-grid, winter or summer, in the desert or on the mountain. This Campmaker van is for sale. To learn more about it, see campmaker.com.